Yeah, I think that if we were superheroes, the device that I would ask, the special weapon that I would ask as a superhero is a big hammer, is a big sledgehammer to just completely wipe all the ivory towers that we think when we think about old opera. And I think we've been successful in
Yeah.
that, is that you bring the opera to a baseball field under a tent, but you know what? It worked.
Yeah.
And people performed safely, people came to see the show and were safe, and it's a relationship that will serve us for years to come.
Well, if there's ever been an example of a man who has broken down the ivory tower and reduced it to rubble and taken those bricks and built a new theater out of it, it's you, Tomer.
It's Zoom and
Zooming,
Tumor.
zooming Toomer. He's
Zoom
zooming
and
all
Tumor.
over.
I love it.
So, Tomer, zooming Toomer, as we call you, lovely, as we lovingly call you throughout the first time we did the
Zoom
Opera
and
Opera
Tumor.
show. Zooming Toomer, Tomer Zvulun. Right here, you can see in the background at the Atlanta Opera House. That's now our Opera House. Oh, you're muted.
I am muted because above me you will hear things rolling and things and little feet tapping,
That's
and
fine. That's all
it's
part of it. It's
we're
a real
recording this.
insight into the life, you know.
Yeah, it's you'll have an insight into my life, all right, because it's 4 p.m. We're recording this at 4 p.m. and it's switching hour chez Zvulun. I have two little girls, a 4.5-year-old and a 20-month-old,
Wow.
and they're on fire this time.
Yeah. And you've gotten to spend so much more time with them as a result of this crisis that we're all in, which is
Yeah, it's
kind
been
of a mixed
amazing.
blessing.
It's been
It's been
amazing.
great.
I
Right?
haven't been in an airport for 9 months,
Yeah.
which is the longest I've gone without being in an airport.
I
So
don't
I've
miss that
been
at
eating
all.
3 meals a day with them, putting them to bed. I don't miss it, but just being with them and seeing them ride the bicycle for the first time or
Yeah.
say ABBA for the first time,
Is it their favorite band?
it's just been
No, sorry.
incredible.
Is ABBA their favorite
It is
band?
the favorite band, exactly. It's as tacky as the band.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. So, dude, we did this show's always about like the weird, not weird, but just the connections that happen in our business, and sort of the kind of relationships. Because really, making the art is awesome and it's fulfilling, and you can make all kinds of art. We could go do all kinds of things, but opera specifically for me has always been about the relationships, and that's the thing that keeps me coming back into the opera house, keeps me making the kind of sacrifices that we all have to make in order to make this go. And one of the relationships that has really supported me and given me a lot of strength and confidence, and really sort of expanded my idea of what opera can be and what it should be, was the relationship that we formed years ago. When were we in New Orleans?
Well, we did our first show in Boston.
That was Boston first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that's in 2014. We did Rigoletto. I think it was your first Rigoletto,
yeah. That was the first one.
and it was my first Rigoletto too. And that was like, just a great moment because Boston's a great company, and the design of the show was really cool. John Conklin, Vita Tikkun,
Yeah.
and we just had a blast. Nadine Sierra was
It
on
doesn't
the
seem like 6 years ago to me.
6 years ago, man.
It's
And
6 years ago. I
yeah,
feel like we've known each other for like 20 years, but it's just
I
only
know,
six.
I know. But that was an amazing like connection from the beginning, because that was a really challenging production from like a realization standpoint. It was very abstract and weird, and you totally got on board with the ideas, and you
Yeah.
sounded amazing, and it was just like,
Yeah, that was my first Rigoletto, my first Verdi role. When I went and auditioned for that in New York, Sean Jeffrey, my one of the people at my agency, was there monitoring the audition, and she was like, she came out after, because I had gone into audition for Don Giovanni, and so I brought Giovanni and some other stuff, but I was going through sort of a vocal transition at that time, so I had sung the prologue many times. Just it'd been something that I learned way too early, but something that I knew really well, and I needed something more, something sort of representing that next sort of transition I was trying to make. And so I just threw it on there on a whim because I knew I could. It's like a party piece for me. I could just do it. And so going into, I sang Giovanni's Serenade, and then they asked for that. And then when I left, they just stayed in the room forever. And I was like, this has got to be good, right? So I didn't know what they were thinking of. And Sean came out, and her eyes were like this, and she was like, they wanted to know why we didn't put you up for Rigoletto, and I think you're available. I'm not 100% sure. And I got a call. I was like, find out, you know. So it was the first, you know, time I'd ever even thought about doing anything of that nature, that sort of Verdi baritone stuff. And so, just like as always, what happens with me, it was the first Verdi role would be Rigoletto. You know, nothing like jumping into the deep end to learn how to swim.
Well, and so I think that was a genius choice on Boston's part, because, you know, first of all, Esther and Nick are really good at finding the right singers. But, you know, when they told me back in 2012, because it's a couple of years before you actually do the show they cast, they said, well, and we cast Mike Mays to sing Rigoletto. And I said, what? This guy is singing Guglielmo and Giovanni, because I didn't know you at the time. Guglielmo Giovanni, right? I mean, what, Rigoletto? Well, maybe it's a small house, so it can work. I don't know. He's a good actor, right? I hear he's a good actor. So, okay, whatever. It's your company. I'm just directing. So I came, and I'd never told you that. I was like, that's a crazy choice, but okay. And I was excited about working with you dramatically, but I was not convinced about whether you can sing it vocally or not. And then we started working, and I was like, oh, whoa, here's a guy who can not only act the hell out of it, but also sing the hell out of it. And that's really weird.
One of the things I loved about that project was that it wasn't Renaissance fair opera, you know, and Rigoletto can be done that way. It's always done that way more often than not, especially in America. You know, everybody has the costumes from the time period. It's very square and, you know, very like, oh, it's, and to be able to dip in to Rigoletto the first time in an ethic that I was really much more interested in doing. I was much more interested in executing that particular theatrical ethic than I was just this sort of on the nose telling of the story. And I felt like it gave me a lot of freedom to lean into those things that you were talking about, the acting and things like that, just to lean into that part of the storytelling as opposed to, you know, kind of going through the motions and stuff. It was really fantastic. And you gave me so much latitude and help which I needed, because it was my first time.
but you made it, you know, because it's really, it all, basically the whole show is about this guy, this twisted guy, and what goes on in his mind. And from the moment that he's cursed, I just believe that his deformity, both physical and mental, gets worse and worse and worse. And he does some crazy things. And what we've done in this production that very few people can execute, and you did, was the idea that it gets so much worse that until the end, he just goes so crazy that he ends up killing his own daughter, and she appears as a spirit. And it's just...
I loved that element at the end. I mean, people talk about that to me till this day, and we use the same sort of idea in Houston, where, you know, rather than have this, one of the things that for me is really unbelievable about Rigoletto and a lot of older opera is that when people die, they die for like 12 pages. You know, and it's like, man, just die already. Romeo and Juliet is the best because the line is, oh, Poison, you work quick. And they go on for like an entire scene. I'm dying. Oh, no, I'm dying. But I thought that was a really clever way to sort of surmount that hedge for the suspension of disbelief, was that instead of, you know, her actually singing through, you know, blood and gurgling and all this stuff, she actually is, the voice is in his head. Right, or the spirit is speaking to him, and that's, to me, a much better way to solve that problem than, you know, opening the sack and a little head popping out. You know?
Exactly, and the payoff is at the end when he actually realizes, "Figlia, mia figlia, è morta." That just gets you in the heart. And so, you know, you mentioned that you did it again in Houston, so that was in 2019, and so we've done it in 2014 and 2019. And for me, that was hugely different, because in 2014, I didn't have two little girls. And in 2019, I had two little girls.
Yeah.
And so watching you say goodbye to your daughter at the end, I was sitting with my wife, and we would just, because we thought about our little girls, and you know, mental sickness is a real thing, you know, and this guy is really struggling with a lot of demons. He's much more complex than than what he can be made to be. You know, like this Renaissance fair clown. No, this is a complex character. It was written like that. Verdi got it, Hugo got it, and it deserved that interpretation.
For me, the difficult part for grand opera and sort of the older sort of museum pieces, for lack of a better term, is that they're sort of distant in time, in style, and it's sort of far away from my knowledge and my cultural context. And it wasn't until I actually began to do pieces in my own language that told my own stories that I really got it, as far as how to get there mentally and how to really connect with the material and have sounds that come from a real place. And it was all of that modern American opera that I was doing along the way that really informed the way I could tell this story and stories like that came after.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, I got to modern opera a little later, but it's always been my attraction to opera has been the possibility of linking a dramatic story to a psychological story.
Yeah.
Like the music provides that link to psychology. And so that's why whenever I do a classic opera like Lucia or Rigoletto or Giovanni, I'm interested in the psychology, in the timeless archetype nature of humanity. Because, you know, whether you're in the 17th century or the 21st century, what drives us, what makes us feel pain or love or lust or jealousy is the same. The clothes may be different, but who cares? I think the mistake that is done often is that once people put on a certain costume, they feel like it removes them, and in turn it removes the audience from them. And that's why it's so challenging to actually do a show in the time period, which was what we've done with Rigoletto, because Rigoletto was actually a Renaissance fair in terms of clothes. I mean, it was in the Renaissance period, but the psychology was modern. And the way that we told that story, there were no props, there was just lighting, some scenic elements, and amazing acting from you, Nadine, Maurice Robinson, so that it felt close to us, whether it's modern times or not. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all have this same impulse when we look at older time periods, and we look at it sort of behind glass. You know, it seems like it's very distant, and those people, you know, had different motivations and different faults and different quality, but it's not. I mean, human qualities have not changed over time. Our values have changed a bit, but the qualities, the base emotions, the base relationships, the conflict, I mean, that's why these stories endure over time. But what I love about, I mean, I've never seen anything that you've done that didn't sort of take that tack of really, you know, maybe leaving the window dressing and everything in place, but really leaning into the more psychological element that speaks to that commonality that we have with our forebears, which is that emotional complexity and that emotional landscape that hasn't changed that much. You know, we all understand the ideas of love and hate and conflict and all of these things. They're all the same over time. And so we've been able to sort of, you know, in these cool shows, be able to bridge that gap. And I really enjoy that.
Especially with Verdi, where it's all about family and the relationship with the father and the daughter and the, you know. Anyway, we are such opera geeks. If we were on YouTube, we would probably see two people watching us, me and you. Because we talk about opera all day long.
One story I like to tell people, and I always, you know, I'm a Texan, so a lot of times my stories are very true to me. But in the telling, I tend to embellish sometimes, so I want to make sure I get this right. I remember, so we were doing Dead Man Walking in New Orleans, and you were really like wanting to bring that show to Atlanta, but given sort of, you know, if you're in a southern state like Georgia or Louisiana, or I've done it in Oklahoma, you know, where they have the death penalty, it seems kind of controversial, and sometimes it's a barrier for people, like for the board or for people that are involved in producing opera in this community. Sometimes people are kind of skittish about that project. So you wanted me to sort of come and do a concert. And so it was basically maybe do some stuff from Dead Man, because he said something like, I want to introduce you to my board and to my people. And I had a different idea about that. Can you tell me what, from your side, what you remember about that idea?
I mean, look, this is connected to my history at the Atlanta Opera. When I took over in 2013, 7 years ago already, uh, the expectation was be very, very careful, because one mistake and we are gone.
Yeah.
There is no Atlanta Opera if you make one mistake. If you do a show that is not going to be successful, we're going to bankrupt. That was the fear, and that fear led into fear from new works, from trying new productions, new people, and it takes a while to change that mentality and thinking and expectation. And as time went by and we started to introduce new productions, uh, familiar operas, but in new productions, and inserting doses, small doses of chamber operas, modern chamber operas like Three Decembers or Soldier Songs, Out of Darkness, slowly building up into taking a big risk. Because Silent Night and Dead Man Walking, for my board back in 2013 for this company, was a huge, unprecedented, ridiculous risk. Today, in almost 2021, that's the expectation.
Yeah.
But it takes a long time to disarm people from a fear of failure, and that's, I guess, what I was talking about.
Yeah, maybe like Darren, my friend Darren K. Woods, which whom we both know and love.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. And one of the things, I mean, way back in I'm talking about 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013, when he and I were hanging out and working together a lot. One of the things he always said, that as an opera company, if you're not growing, you're dying. You can't maintain a status quo. You have to constantly be expanding and constantly being able to grow the narrative of where we're going. And that's what's been so amazing to watch. And part of that was when you were like, I want you to come and do this concert. I didn't want to sing a bunch of opera stuff. I didn't want to do the same old thing. And so I had this idea that we would sort of mix it up. I had this idea kicking around a long time that opera and the genre I grew up singing, which was country music, have a lot in common. It just takes opera 3.5 hours instead of 3.5 minutes to tell the same story, right? And
exactly.
When you're talking to, like, often, and you know this and I know this, but a lot of folks out here may not, is that a lot of times when you're looking at opera boards or people that are our hardcore supporters, they're often a part of a couple, and usually it's one person's interest, and the other person is sort of there to support them and their hobbies and their interests. And for me, I always thought, I knew that there was, we'll use some worn out tropes of the husband who's dragged to an opera event. It's like, oh, I gotta watch this stupid opera stuff. And so I thought, it would always be great to combine these two genres. And it's not an original idea. I've seen it done in country music with, the Hot Rise and and their alternate ego and stuff like that. So I thought it'd be great to find, 4 or 5, opera singers who grew up singing country music and playing country music and having that connection to that world, because none of us, grew up wanting to be opera singers. Most of us did. We wanted to be Aretha Franklin or Johnny Cash or something. So I found John Burton and Corey Crider and Leah Partridge, who lives there in Atlanta, and put together an opera to Opry concert where we had one half that was straight up opera and one half that was country. And the conceit was that the general director had called a booking agency and booked 2 opera acts, and there was a mistake made. They sent you an opera act and an Opry act. And so in the second half, we did the first half, which is straight up, the square opera gala that you always see.
The boring part.
And everybody politely claps. Oh, that was very nice. Oh, that duet was very nice.
Like that, high A, yeah.
He definitely executed that Jim floor routine perfectly, right? And then we'd all come back in our alter egos as Cletus McCatfield and McCatfield family players and come back and play a set of country music that related to every single opera. And it really came off well. But that's what the whole idea, when I first introduced it, I was like, this old feller, Zvulun Toomer, came out here and was going to tell us about.
And that's how it all started, Zvulun Toomer. But the other part of it was that it was done at the Shakespeare Tavern.
Yeah.
in Atlanta, which is this great place where Shakespearean plays are done in a very disarming and pub
Yeah.
feeling.
Dinner theater.
Where you get a pint of beer and you watch as you like it, and you feel at the same time that you're having a beer with your buddy, and you are also giving yourself the cultural elitist injection of a Shakespearean play. And so that's the same thing with this opera meets the Opry, because it's a combination. You know, like I think the key is finding what combinations, what collaborations work when you tell a story.
Well, I wondered about that because
so
this is really kind of out there for I mean, you grew up in Israel. You don't know much about country music. And here's this redneck who comes up to you and is like, I got a great idea about this. And you really bit so hard that I was scared at first, because I didn't, I had this loose idea. I had no idea how to execute it. And I had about 10 months to get it done. So what made you say, yeah, sure, that's a great idea. Let's go with it?
Well, it sounded cool because it took something popular, and it says here my internet connection is unstable, so we may have to re-record this. Yeah. But it sounded cool because it took a popular medium, an extremely popular medium, with a medium that is, let's face it, less popular. Opera is not popular for everybody. Right. And I think when you combine things that are not necessarily meant to be together, like puppetry and opera, or cinema and ballet, some things happen that you don't expect. And opera and country music seemed like one of them. And I just wanted to have you in Atlanta. So here you go. We found an excuse.
That worked out so well, man. I mean, we really, I mean, the audience went crazy. We did it 2 years running.
And we had to add a performance. We had to add a performance in the second year.
Yeah.
and this year you did the country music concert. Yeah.
The Crossroads concert, which also went super well. It's so funny because I remember in the opera to opera thing, the first half, everybody was very polite in their clapping, And it was like the country music really gave people permission to cut loose. And in the second half, people went crazy. The ovations were. We had 4 or 5 standing ovations. And I think part of it was this demystification of the idea that we all are part of the class that sort of comes or that is perceived to enjoy our attend opera, which is the fancy people or whatever. And I think that seeing that these opera singers come from a very different place than what the perception is, and the fact that we can do things that aren't just perfect vowels and pearl-shaped tones, was really kind of amazing for an audience to see.
But the greatest thing about it is that it was an opportunity for you to do what you love. Yeah. And when you do what you love and you're talented, then there is no question that what we will see, we're going to enjoy, which is why it's something that we've taken as a mantra for the Atlanta Opera. So, the concerts we've done this fall were all artist-driven content. The fact that you're doing this podcast with people that you feel comfortable talking with is going to make it good because you believe in it. You feel comfortable. It's not something that somebody's telling you to do or giving you the prescription of how to do it. And that's what appealed to me with Opera to Opry. You loved it. You wanted to do it.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the sort of flagship characteristics of at least our relationship throughout the years. I mean, we've done Dead Man Walking 3 times. And we did all Sweeney Todd, or you didn't direct, but you were there. And is this you don't ever like clamp down on people, like it's got to be this way. There's a real freedom of expression, and you really trust your artists to sort of fill in the sort of black and white picture that you paint. You give us so much latitude and so much freedom to be able to do what we want to do. And that's one of the things that I think has been a real welcome characteristic for a director and for a singer.
I feel like rehearsal is a little bit like improvising jazz, and I'm the least talented musician in the group. Like I'm here to just improvise with you, but here's my idea, and you take it and make whatever you want from it. And I believe that if people just take an idea and take it somewhere else and are able to work with other colleagues, because casting is a key.
Mm-hmm.
The casting and who's the conductor. So there's a certain dynamic that is nurturing, then that's the right process. If you come to a rehearsal as the director as if you know everything and everything is in this thing, then people feel like they're shackled and they're not going to flourish. And I've been in those situations because I've been an assistant director for many years, sitting in the seat next to a director that wanted it exactly how he had it in his mind or in some sort of blocking that he did in his room. And I tried that too. Like my first years is that's how I try to direct, was like, this is what you do. And I realized that it's never going to bloom as much as it will when you just come with a little bit of humility, knowing that the people that are there are the people that are going to end up performing and not you. You're just a conduit to making them shine. That's all.
I mean, it does seem like, and just like it's only been the past, 5 or 10 years that I've been able to speak to producers more as colleagues and as friends. And one of the things that, like Roberto Mauro is a friend of mine from years back, and one of the things that he always told me was that people don't think of casting directors as artists. They're like admins or whatever, but there is a tremendous amount of art that goes into casting, because 98% of the work that you do is done before you walk in the room. So if you're having to do all of that stuff right off the bat, but if you cast the right people that can work together and that can execute a vision together without too much consternation or whatever, you're already on third base. You just have to get them home.
I keep saying that for me, directing is 90% about casting.
Yeah.
And that's why I like working in certain companies where I trust the artistic director to cast it well,
Mm-hmm.
or I just cast those people in my company, and I'm able to work with the people that I believe in.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because you have, I mean, we've been talking about the ideas that have sort of that have been actualized by the Atlanta Opera Company players for a while. We've been talking about the idea that one of the drawbacks to the way opera is traditionally produced in America is that you're there for 3 weeks and you're gone. You're there for a week and you're gone, or for 4 weeks and you're gone. And so you can never get to that next level of ensemble sort of connection with people. And this idea we've been sort of kicking around for a while really was able to be realized because of the pandemic, and because of the fact that Atlanta has so many incredible opera singers that live right there around the city limits. And so we were able to do a lot of those things, to be able to realize the crazy vision that you had for this time when you were producing opera when nobody else was, had a lot to do with the people that you were able to bring in and get to work together. So how long these ideas that you realized in Atlanta, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. So how long have you been thinking about this kind of stuff, and what was the real sort of trigger that made you flip it over into this full-on American fest, which we haven't seen in decades?
I've been thinking about it since I became a father, honestly. So
Yeah.
2016, Maya was born, and the difficulty of leaving home became excruciating, because you don't want to go away from the people you love. And it doesn't matter how much you get paid or how exciting the project is. It's so difficult to leave a baby who is a week old and come back when she's 5 weeks, 6 weeks old. That was hard for me. So it was like this kind of, is there a world where all those talented people don't have to leave home? Because when I was staying home and I was directing a show here at home, I was able to go home and put Maya to sleep and wake her up in the morning and have dinner with her. I'm sorry, that's important for me. And I was thinking, what can I do to foster the incredible talent of the people that live around Atlanta? Because there's a huge conglomeration of very talented people that are dying to do what they do best, which is perform, and still be home and have an income with health insurance and still be able to go home to see their loved ones. That's it. And I was racking my brains and talking to different people like Jamie Barton, Morris Robinson, yourself, Kevin Burdett. By the way, those four people are a part of the Autistic Advisory that we formed back in 2018. So we were like going with those ideas and trying to figure this out. And then they say that you never waste a crisis. That's one of my favorite saying. You never waste a crisis. And this crisis came. And suddenly all those amazing people that I was trying to book 3 years in advance and never able to get on the calendar, all of them are home. All of them are unable actually to perform. All of them feel vulnerable because their contracts were canceled. They don't have health insurance. They don't have income. And here we are able to try to help, not in a grand way, but in some way that will get them through this by adding them to the company as company players, giving them health insurance, figuring out a way for them to perform safely. And for me, that was like a great moment back in March or April when we were trying to figure out how do you take COVID, perform safely, and make use of those incredible artists while helping them get through it. That's it.
I mean, I know when I first came into the business, I was in a different place, and there was a lot of. I mean, I've always been married to singers because that's what I do, and there was a lot of reticence and almost like the people were almost super resistant to the idea of having a married couple like in the same production or in a young artist program, for instance, which it was literally like, we can't have a married couple. We can't do that. And now at your company, you have 2 married couples in the ensemble that were able to, and for me, that was, I mean, for all the stuff and the storm and drawn that we go through in the business, for me, that was really a testament to the idea that you guys are a family company. Because being able to, like you said, being able to be home, and even though I was, we live in Columbia, South Carolina, we were living there in Atlanta, but to be there with my wife all the time and see her at home every single night, it was incredible, man. And being able to see like our friends who are also couples bring their children into the place, it really made it such a affirming way to make opera and to exist in the art form.
And the benefits go way beyond the artists and the company, because it goes into the community and the education opportunity and the fundraising opportunities and the marketing and the PR, because suddenly you're not just Mike May shows up in Barcelona for 4 weeks, trying all the tapas bars, going back home. Maybe he'll come back, maybe he won't. Yeah. Your connection with the community is one time, maybe twice. Suddenly here, our board members now, our staff by name. Mm-hmm. You create a relationship with the schools. You give a master class to a school. Thank you for doing that, by the way. So that is all. Was that?
They were super great too. They were awesome.
I know. I mean, it's an amazing benefit of being involved with one company. And that's something that I personally learned, because before I became a general director, I was a hobo. I was traveling, I was at the Met, on the staff, but I was just everywhere all the time. And if you're lucky, you'll come back. But in most cases, you just go to one place for 4 weeks and that's it.
Yeah. And that's the essence. I mean, that's what I always talk about in this show is connection. And one of the connections that I love about Atlanta is the connection to the community.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in Germany working, like when I was in Stuttgart and I was doing Nixon in China with my friend Matthias Klink as Chairman Mao.
Yeah.
When I was walking around town with Matthias, people knew him. I mean, just off the street. And it felt like I was walking around with a baseball player from the Braves or something. And I love the idea that we can be inserted into the community. I mean, every time I come back to Atlanta, I see the same faces. I see the same people that I know. And now, instead of it just being like, well, like you said, well, I'll see you in a year or maybe 2 or maybe 3. Now I'm seeing those same people, or maybe never, right? I'm seeing all these same people and building those relationships, like weren't able to go to have that jam session with Charlie because of the weather. But that kind of thing where it's no longer this idea, this weird hierarchy where these people are up here and these people are down here and all this stuff. I mean, we're all sort of part of the same community and the same family. And it's been a real blessing for me to be able to have that, to be able to feel like I belong somewhere, and then I'm not always an interloper or an outsider, you know?
Yeah. One of my favorite thinkers, his name is Naval Ravikant. Look him up. He's big on Twitter and he published a couple of books. He's a big entrepreneur. And one of the things that he said is that he believes in long-term gains with long-term people, because your benefit compounds when you make business with people that you trust and that you have a long-term relationship that can take decades. And once you recognize that it doesn't work with somebody, you don't necessarily work with them again, that's fine. But the people that you have a relationship with, invest in that relationship, because the benefits will multiply, they will compound. That's his belief as a business person. And I believe that also artistically and from a business standpoint is investing in relationships, because the benefits compound.
And the cool thing is, like, you're going to be able to see these artists grow. Like you said, the benefit compound. You're not only going to be able to see I mean, obviously your young artists are going to have a tremendous amount of growth, because that's the way youth works. You know, a year when you're young is like 10 years when you're old, right? It's just, you're learning so much. But you're also going to see your like I guess the regular ensemble artists. You're going to see them grow and change over time, and you're really connected to and invested in their future.
It's important.
Well, you're investing, you know, in not only in live performance, but in the digital format as well. And there's a lot of things that particular format is doing to connect the opera company to the greater Atlanta community. Could you talk about some of those things that are strengthening the bonds between the opera company and the local community?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've always said about myself that I'm a frustrated filmmaker. Like the greatest influence on my work is the work of great directors, film directors. Yeah. And I've always wondered, is there a world where an opera company, a medium-sized opera company like Atlanta, will ever be able to capture what we do live and have a format where we are able to broadcast it in a media format? And we were not successful, because there's a limit to what you can do when you're focusing on live performance. Yeah. And then never waste a crisis. COVID came, and suddenly you have to capture the things that you do live and broadcast it to the people that cannot attend. And so the obstacle is the way, and that what stood in the way became the way. So we took this COVID-19 world where you can't have a full audience, and we used it to create a digital media platform where we immediately, the first thing we've done in like May, after laying off significant number of our staff, because we had to do cuts because everything is unknown, like every company in America, the first hire that we did was a digital, like a videographer, a resident filmmaker, Felipe Barral, who's now with us. Felipe is amazing. He's like the secret weapon for us. But we hired him and immediately created with Ashley Mirikian, who's our marketing, chief of marketing, this arm of the company that is all about creating content, creating platforms that allow us to stream that content, capturing the live shows we're doing, developing new content. So all the shows we've done this for, including the concerts, have all been captured in high quality definition. We were able to secure a major grant from the Woodward Foundation to invest in additional video and filmmaking. And this is just the beginning, because I believe that now that we have this infrastructure, as we get out of this 2020 COVID world, hopefully get back on the main stage, all of our shows will be available on high definition so that you can stream them on the Atlanta Opera streaming device.
Can you tell us a little bit about the love letters to Atlanta? Because I love this idea, and I love the idea that, you know, for me it feels like a bit of it's an expression of gratitude by the artistic element in Atlanta Opera to the community and to the company, because I've said before that the Atlanta Company Players is a lifeboat, not only for the singers, but for all live performance during the crisis, because we didn't have it anywhere. So you've had a couple of those love letters already that have gone out, and who are they, and what does that really mean? What is the love letters? What is it about?
So the idea is to take iconic places in Atlanta, and there's many iconic places. You know, the Fox Theater, Ebenezer Church, Martin Luther King Monument, you name it. I mean, there's like a bunch of iconic, important places, and you got those 12 iconic opera stars that are a part of the company players. So you take iconic locations, iconic people, and you link them together, and you ask the people what what means the most to you. What is the memory that means the most to you? What is the song that means the most to you? Because rather than me telling you now, please sing Una furtiva lagrima because it's my favorite aria, I ask you, what is a song that means the world to you, and is there a place that means the world to you? Because you grew up here. Many of the company players grew up here, and so the first people I talked to, you know, there were three because we had time and bandwidth to only have three love letters this fall, and the three people I talked to were Jamie Barton, Morris Robinson, Kevin Burdett. And I asked them what is a meaningful place for them and a meaningful song. And so Morris mentioned that when he was a kid, young kid, he came to the Fox Theater, and he was singing in the choir, and this great singer sang "To Dream the Impossible Dream." And Morris, as this 12-year-old with actually a high soprano voice at the time before his voice changed, was standing there not believing this. And that happened at the Fox Theater. And so when I asked Morris, what is the most meaningful thing for him? He said to dream the impossible dream at the Fox Theater. So we got into the Fox Theater and we shot Morris Robinson singing to dream the impossible dream on the stage that he was at 12 years old. And so what happens when you're able, it's magic because you put people together with what means the most to them. You trust the artist. Same thing happened with Kevin Burdett and the Civic Center. Kevin saw a few shows there, and it's been gone for a while. The Civic Center has been unpopulated, but it has been home for opera for many years. So going back to the Civic Center for the first time and having a performance on the stage after 12 years that it was shut down.
Yeah, it was not abandoned, but there's nothing was happening there for 12 years. Right?
Nothing is happening there. We're hoping to revive it somehow. There's some plans that we can't talk about yet, but it was very moving to see Kevin there or Jamie Barton singing Georgia on My Mind. You know, again at the Fox Theater.
So good.
Oh my God. I mean, you know, so, and then we have other plans coming up, but I just believe in artist-driven content.
You know, and that's super. That was my next point, is that it takes a lot of it's a super brave choice to put that kind of power in the hands of your singers, especially because, you know, as long as I've been in the business, there's always this perception that singers are stupid. Just shut up and sing and just do what you're told. And one of the things, you know, that's what we did with Opera to Opry. That's what we did for me, like as far as my personal experience. That's what we did with Opera to Opry. That's what we did with the Crossroads concert. Is that you trusted your artists and you trusted them to execute these ideas that they had. And that takes a lot of bravery and confidence to do something like that.
I don't know. I just think that ego is the enemy often, you know, and if you think that you're better than the people that you hired, then it becomes a problem if you try to micromanage them too much.
Yeah.
And especially with singers, with artists, with musicians, that's what they do. And singers are not stupid. Do not kid yourself. Except for you, you're a special occasion.
I'm very dumb.
but especially the people that we hired for the company players, some of those minds, Alex Schrader, Jamie Barton, Morris Robinson, Meg Marino, those people are really, really smart. And so why not empower them, step out of the way, come up with the general idea and let them run with it. It's the same thing that should be done with designers when you come to direct a new show. If you tell your designers how you exactly want it, it's never going to be as good as a lighting designer or a set designer or a costume designer bringing their own idea. The beautiful thing about art, and especially opera, is the collaborative power that a few brains that are coming together are able to create. That's the power.
I mean, it's really hard for me to collaborate when there's a defined and strict hierarchy, you know? And one of the things that I've enjoyed about working in Atlanta, even before the players, was this sense of egalitarianism. This sense that we're all coming to this playing space as equals. Not there's no dictators, there's always somebody has to make the last call. But I never felt at Atlanta or any of my experiences with you that I couldn't say what I wanted to say, that I couldn't belabor a point until it made sense to me, And so and that ethic even translated into the way you compensated your artists in the company players. Instead of having, normally when we go to an opera company, there's somebody making X and there's somebody making, X minus 10 and X minus 20, and it just goes down. Everybody that was on the stage and that was involved, we were all on the same footing. And I think that was a tremendous a testament and enough to your forethought about where this business, I think, should be going.
Thank you for the compliment. I think I'm really lucky to be surrounded by a great staff. And basically their point, my senior management team, is we never know what the circumstances are going to be. And all we're trying to do is do the right thing. That's all.
So now that you've had this sort of the laboratory of the fall, and we have some things coming up in the spring, but can you talk about what is coming in the spring, and then how do you see this idea that you've had moving into the future, and do you see it happening at other companies perhaps? Because there are cities all around America, just like Atlanta, that have tremendously accomplished and talented opera singers and designers and directors that live within the city limits or just outside. And at a time where we've had to move our focus hyperlocal, do you see this thing sort of catching fire and spreading to other places? And how is it going to develop over time at Atlanta?
Look, I don't know about other places. I can tell you that other places have come up with some incredibly innovative programs of their own. Detroit doing a gutter demoing in a garage.
Yeah. San Diego.
There's all those examples. So I don't want to say, the Atlanta Opera is the beacon of everything, because there's so much creativity in the industry right now. I can tell
I'll say it. I say it's the beacon.
Thank you for that. But like the way we're looking at things right now is a little bit like in a two-pronged way. One is the live shows that we're doing, that we're figuring out how to create them safely. And the other one is the digital capturing of all those shows. Yeah. And we are making sure that the infrastructure that we're creating right now, again, never waste a crisis, the infrastructure that we're creating in terms of relationship with those singers, the relationship that we're creating with the media people, the sound people, the video people, the platform that we're creating for being able to stream all our shows in the future are going to serve us well when we're back in the theater. It's not a Band-Aid. The way we're thinking about it is not, oh my God, let's try to create something and send it online to our donors because they need to hear from us, because that's a Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. The crisis allows us to figure out things and push the envelope and adopt systems and styles that we would never be able to do in a normal time. Experiments that we would never be able to achieve. Collaborations with the Center of Puppetry Arts, like we did for Pagliacci, or that we're about to do with the next opera we're doing. Collaborations with different theater companies in Atlanta, with the ballet, with the symphony. I mean, what it's done is incredible. And especially the company of players, the relationship we're creating with you guys is not going to disappear when this is over. Yeah. I think that those people will return again and again because the audience knows them, because the board wants them, because the staff loves them. That's a story. Long-term game with long-term people.
Yeah, because I tell you what, in my travels across America and all the different opera companies I've been to, there's often this sense that the opera company is on an island. It's not that connected to the community, and oftentimes the any kind of community connection is sort of the last thing they think about. And the idea that you guys have embedded these artists in the community, and you have all these tentacles that are reaching out into the community and saying, you know, we want to collaborate with this arts organization and that organization and put our artists out and do love letters and reach out to the schools and not just give it lip service, but actually go out there and embed it into the community and connect the company to the community so that it's a thriving, living, breathing part of the artistic and cultural life in a city, rather than something that's seen up on a distant hill that's far away from what people, you know, want to do or see. It's literally making ourselves part of the community, part of the cultural and artistic life of the city.
I agree.
I think that's the only way that we can survive, because we do have so much competition out there for the entertainment dollar that unless people feel like what they're doing is coming and actually supporting their community, you know, everything that, you know, all politics are local, and I think that art is a local phenomenon as well.
Yeah, I think that if we were superheroes, the device that I would ask, the special weapon that I would ask as a superhero, is a big hammer, is a big sledgehammer to just completely wipe all the ivory towers that we think when we think about old opera. And I think we've been successful in that, is that you bring the opera to a baseball field under a tent, but you know what? It worked. And people performed safely, people came to see the show and were safe, and it's a relationship that will serve us for years to come.
Well, if there's ever been an example of a man who has broken down the ivory tower and reduced it to rubble and taken those bricks and built a new theater out of it, it's you, Tomer.
It's Zoom and Toomer.
He's zooming all over.
I love it.
Well, man, that's fantastic to talk to you, man. I know. I mean, it's. I'm not going to pretend like we don't talk all the time, because we're buddies, and that's awesome. But thank you for coming out here.
For me, I hope this was not too boring, because we talked so much about opera. So I hope people enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But you know what? I don't care, because I enjoy talking to you. So
we like it. I mean, I happen to like what we do for a living, so it's, you know.
I do like it.
I'm glad we aren't the people that do opera that hate opera. I actually like this thing.
Cheers to many more years.
Yeah. Right on, brother.